Deciding between owning or renting a home is not purely financial, but not knowing the financial aspects might result with making the wrong decision. In the second episode of Own versus Rent, I'm going to deep dive into the math so you can get the education and the tools that are necessary in order to make an informed decision. So sit down, get your notebooks, and let's do it! Howdy everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Oreo Cannon. I am a computer engineer, a licensed realtor in Austin, Texas, and I like spreadsheets a bit more than I would care to admit. My mission is to spread real estate and financial education since nobody seems to teach us these things. My content is a bit lengthy, but that is the only way I know how to do it well without cutting corners. In the first video of Own versus Rent series, I covered all the basics that you need to know before you go deep down into the math, so if you haven't watched it, make sure to watch it. As a reminder, we spoke about a comparison from the initial terms and the assumption, and we are missing the math, and this episode is about the math, so I'm kind of excited. I like spreadsheets, I said it before. Now, in order to make my life easier, and also yours, I'm going to move into the tablet, so Bar, make some amazing transition. Alright everyone, this is the tablet portion. I'm going to go over some numbers, so bear with me. We're going to start with the initial terms, as we spoke on the earlier video. And for the initial terms, let's just say, for example, that we have $120,000 saved up, and we have an income of 10 grand and expenses of 6 grand. Expenses do not include anything about housing, no rent, no mortgage. Yeah, expenses, I know, daycare, bills, those type of things. So 10K minus 6 is 4K. This is the monthly amount of payment that we can disperse into real estate as rental or owning it or mortgages and into investment. Let's talk about what happens if we rent a place versus if we own a place with regards to expenses and gains. So what are the expenses of rental? Well, it's kind of easy. It's rent, right? So rent is expense number one, and then what is expense number two? You guessed it right, no expenses. So that's kind of the cool thing about renting a place. You don't have like recurring expenses that are associated with your housing. And the gains that we have are, well, anything that we have left after we pay the rent. So we have monthly savings or maybe investments of 1.6K, right? Like I said, monthly, which means that if we put 120, sorry for the writing, if we put $120,000 plus 1.6K per month over the course of, I don't know, several years, let's say 5 years for this example, and we add the compounded interest, this entire thing is our gains. So we take the money that we're not using in order to buy a house. We're taking the money that we can put monthly into our savings account, investment, or whatever. This money grows if we invest it with whatever assumptions that we have in mind. And at the end, we have something. These are the gains for the rental situation. Let's talk about the ownership situation. What happens if we own a place? So the expenses that we have are, well, interest payment, like all the interest payments that we are paying month per month, this money goes away. We'll never see it again. The other thing are taxes that we pay, property taxes. And then we have expenses of me being a homeowner. Now I have, every now and then the roof blows apart, the HVAC tear down, whatever the case may be, we have some expenses associated with it. What do we gain when we are paying the mortgage? And let's just say for this example, let's say the same thing. Let's say it's a 2.4K mortgage, just as an example. So we gain principal. So the principal is the portion of the monthly payment that we pay for the mortgage that reduces our debt to the bank. We gain tax benefits. Nobody can read this. I can't read this, and I wrote it. Benefits. And we gain also the appreciation of the property, if we have appreciation of this property. Last but not least, we also gain the investment. So if we had $120,000, and let's say that we used $100,000 for buying a house, for putting the down payment, maybe we take the 20 grand and the 1.6K and blah, blah, blah. It's the same exact situation as we had here. It's the same type of thing. We invested somewhere and it's the same type of investment because we are the same person. If that all makes sense, we are ready for the spreadsheet. All right, we are in the spreadsheet and now we're going to look at it and understand what's going on. And I know there are a lot of numbers here, but bear with me. On the left-hand side, we have here the initial terms, what we are bringing to the table. So we have the savings, we have the monthly income net, and we have the yearly income net, I wish it was monthly, and the yearly expenses. And here we have the monthly figures, and when we do the calculation, we see the amount of money that we have left. I wrote here that it's about 40% of our income, and as a general rule of thumb, we want to have at the very, very least 30% of available income for housing and investments. If that is not the case, we need to have a call about budgeting. So let me know in the comments if I need to make this video already. I don't know, All right, what else? I'm looking at this thing and I see the monthly payment disbursement. So let's say that I take this 4 grand and I want to rent the place. And let's say that the rent costs $2,400. It means I have $1,600 left for investments. And it means that my housing percent of income is 24% because $2,400 out of the total of 10 grand. You don't want to be more than a third in this ratio here. You always want to allocate less than a third of your income towards housing solutions if possible. Okay, for mortgage, we'll talk about it later when we speak about mortgages because these parameters are derived. But the thing I wanted to show you is that if I pay this amount for the mortgage, it means I have this amount for investment and I'm going to invest my money still. It's the same type of situation, whether I rent or whether I buy, whatever excess I have, I am investing. I'm not just going around and buying motorcycles with it, all right? All right, last thing, assumptions. So assumptions are extremely important. And for this example, I am starting with 0 just to show you the baseline, and then I will add the assumptions. We have here the investment gains, how much money I think I will gain with the investment year over year, and then we have the appreciation, how much I think the property will appreciate year over year. So for renting, we are looking at this column right here. This is the rent. So we are paying $144 over the course of 5 years in rent. Ouch, that is not a small amount of money, but housing costs money. You need to live somewhere and properties ain't cheap, All right, then we bring 120 to begin with to saving for our savings account, and we are contributing an additional $96,000 over the course of 5 years. Do the math. 1,600 times 60 becomes this thing, all right? So total contribution are $216,000. The compounded interest effect is, well, the same because I have 0% of investment gains. So in this specific example, there are no gains. It's like I put my money in the bank, didn't touch it at all. So with that out of the way, we see that the total holdings at the end of the time period that we have are $216,000. If we spent total of $360, and this figure is pretty much 120 that we started with plus 4K times 60. This is 360. This is the amount of cash that we spent over the course of 5 years. So when I look at all of this, I see that I spent 360. I have to my name $216,000, which means that when all is said and done, I paid 144. And it kind of makes sense, right? It's literally the rent payments. All of them went, well, not to my pockets. The gains in this example are minus 40%. Basically, out of the 350 that we brought to the table, we have left 216. It's like we lost 40% over time. And it's important for me to mention here, it's not that we are losing money as much as we are paying for commodity because we're paying rent in order to live in a house. We need to remember that. It's not just money that went away. We got something in return. Was it the best deal? I don't know. Maybe. Okay. Now let's talk about what happens when we own a place. So this is the column about owning. All right? So ownership of a property. It's a bit more complicated, all right? When we own a place, these are the things that we need to account for. So what is the loan to value? Maybe I should start here actually. The property price in this example is $400,000. Loan to value 75%. It means that we are taking a loan of 75% of the value, or that we're putting a down payment of 25%. And I can see it here. 100K I put down, 300 I took as a loan, with 6% amortized for 30 years. But why are you not amortizing it for 15 years? Because I watched my own video about mortgages, and you should watch it too. So make sure to watch the other video. Okay. Then we have the monthly payment and the taxes, total of 26 something. For this example, we took annual gains of 0%. The tax rate, property taxes are 2% in this example. Yearly expenses, I factored in $2,400 per year. No appreciation, as I mentioned. This is the gains for the investment portion. And then capital gains and income tax, I factored them in as well. Okay, so with all of that out of the way, what is going on here? Let's see. We're looking here in this column, which is own. So over the course of 5 years, the property appreciated by, 0%, so it's still worth 400 grand. I paid total taxes of 40,000 and I paid 87 in interest, totaling about 127K. I owe the bank $279,000. Remember, even though I took the loan, I paid my principal over the course of 5 years and I reduced it by 20 grand. So 20 grand more that I have to my name. Yearly expenses, again, just math. And then this portion here is really important, deductions, benefits. So remember this portion here, when we took the taxes and the interest payment? Because these are tax deductible, it means that I'm not paying income tax on $127,000 over the course of 5 years. Now, if my effective income tax is 32%, it means that I saved something like 40 grand. 40 grand of money that I didn't pay. This is net in my pocket. This is not imaginary numbers here. It's really important to account for that. So, with all of that out of the way, I'm selling the property, I liquidate it, and I get 372, even though it's worth 400 grand, because liquidation costs money. You pay realtor, you pay closing cost, and so on and so forth. I took 7% as the yield here. And that's all about the ownership portion, okay? So my total gains from the ownership would be these two minus these two. When all is said and done, this is the money that I have, this is the money that I owe or that I paid, and the total amount will be factored in on the total holdings. The other portion, and I'm not going to go over it completely, is this portion. I'm not going to go over it because it's the freaking same thing as before. I put 100 grand, and I had 120. So 120 minus 100, how much is it? You know it, 20 grand. This is the money here. Monthly contribution, 92, because this is the money that we had after we paid the mortgage. And we didn't have any capital gains here, so it's all the same. In the end, what we have is 233, which is this amount here plus this amount here. This is the total holdings. I have 112 of money that I saved up, and the remainder is what I have after I sell the property. In these two examples, we see that in the rent portion, with 0% of annual gains and 0% of appreciation, well, appreciation is not factored into the rent, but whatever, we have minus 40, and in the buying portion, we have minus 35%, or pretty much minus 126. So in this comparison, buying the house, if you are not investing your money anywhere, and you don't believe that anything will appreciate at all, is leaving you in a 20%, in 20 grand of additional holdings compared to renting the place. So, should you buy? I don't know. Depends on you. 20 grand isn't that big of a margin. And when you buy the place, you didn't have the flexibility to move around. You maybe had to deal with more volatile expenses than what you factored in. And I don't know, maybe something else happened in the interim. So it's really up to you. The main thing to know is what is the difference, and then you can factor in whether it's better or worse. Other people are going to argue, hey, I own this home. I can improve it, so it's going to be worth more even if the market did not appreciate. And I didn't need to be afraid of the landlord increasing my rent. And whatever benefits that you have, more on that on the video that we'll have in the next week. The main point is, look at the difference, understand the pros and cons, and make an informed decision. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's play with a couple of numbers. First thing I'm going to do, let's reduce it to 2 years. If I reduce the time frame to 2 years, what do I see now? I see now that the gains are smaller. Now basically renting leaves us with more money compared to owning the place. I have 10 extra thousand. So if you're moving into a place, you're not going to invest anything, you're not going to do anything with your money other than putting it in the bank, and you don't believe in appreciation, maybe renting the place would actually be better practice for you, right? Another thing I want to show you here is the assumptions and why they are so important. Some people are just saying, hey, I don't know investments, I don't know real estate, I'm just going to assume zero. Remember that assuming zero is still an assumption. And if you assume zero appreciation in several markets, it's kind of weird and definitely not true. So it's up to you to decide what assumptions to take. For an example, let's put 5% of investment gains and 4% of appreciation. What happens in that scenario? Now we see that over the course of 5 years, we have $75,000 of difference towards buying a house. So if 20 grand were not enough, maybe 75 are enough. I don't know. Again, depends on your specific situation. And if we reduce it to 2 years, in that case, renting a place is slightly below owning it. So apply your own judgment. The point is, you can play around with this thing and understand per assumptions, per your situation, what is the difference in the financial output, and then achieved an informed decision that is tailor-made for you. If you got all the way through the video to here, thank you so much for your patience. I'm sorry it was a bit lengthy, but there is a lot of ground to cover. If this tool seems relevant to you or interesting to you, please drop me a like. If I get to enough likes, I will spend some money, build it properly, put it on my website, theinvestory.net, so anybody can use it properly. In our next episode in the Rent versus Own series, we're going to talk about your personal preferences, so you can apply your judgment with all the financial information you just received, so you don't need to trust your gut feeling or mother or whomever that told you to buy or rent a place, and you can achieve an informed decision based on the data points. Please share this video so other people can learn, and I'll see you on the next one.